I will start by inviting our colleague from the European Commission, Florin Stolero, to address you with his brief introductory speech, and then I will continue with the presentation. Florin, please go ahead.
Good morning to you all. I apologize for my voice. I am a victim of the air conditioning in this beautiful
Είμαι το θύμα, θέλετε, του κλιματισμού σε αυτό το πανέμορφο καιρό που...
Hepinize teşekkür etmek istiyorum bu eğitime, bu
this training session and for your interest in the call for proposal civil society in action 9. For those who are not familiar with this grant scheme, I want to mention that basically every 2 years we launch a call for proposal for civil society. It is one of the most successful program and with in my opinion, with the biggest impact that we have under the EU aid program for Turkish Cypriot community. As you know, the aid program for Turkish Cypriot community seeks to facilitate the unification of Cyprus by encouraging the economic development of the Turkish Cypriot community. Until now, almost 690 million euros were allocated under this aid program. Support for civil society, it is one of the core objectives of the aid program. You're probably familiar with the fact that the European Union considers that an empowered civil society is essential to defend democracy, human rights, and social inclusion and other European values. Moreover, civil society is very important in designing, implementing, and monitoring public policies and ensure an inclusive growth. In Cyprus, civil society organizations play also a key role in the settlement process by promoting reconciliation, dialogue, and closer relationship between the two communities. In the absence of a formal dialogue on the peace process, basically civil society are now the main engine in promoting these confidence building measures. As a result of the 8 previous calls, we see that the numbers and the capacity of the civil society organization has increased, and basically civil society organizations and their activities have more impact and they are more recognized both by society and authorities and local bodies related to their importance for society. When we designed the current call for proposal, we took into account the feedback that you provided during the consultation process, and thank you very much for this. We also consider the current EU priorities, the lesson learned, and the recommendation of the evaluators during the previous call. I will not enter into details of the call as my colleagues from ground support team will present this very comprehensive. Probably you have seen that the call is divided in 4 lots, one for environment, a second one for confidence building actions, the third one is for strengthening the civil society in the Turkish Cypriot community, and the last one for new applicants. Basically, the lead applicant in all the calls or Turkish Cypriot organization, except the second in all the lots. I'm sorry, or the Turkish Cypriot organizations, except the second lot where also Greek Cypriot or civil society organization can be lead applicants in the call, and we also put a restriction for the last lot for the new applicants. Basically, the lead applicants can be civil society organization who have not benefited in the last 10 years, starting with civil society in action 4 of grants. We basically set up these tools for you to support you in designing the project. So besides this training, which is a more technical training related in general with the designing of the log frame matrix and the technical and administrative rules related to this call. We also have the concerning the content part of your project, the substance of your project. We have the help desk of the civic space. We also organized the info sessions where you also have the opportunity to ask questions, and basically we're going to publish this week questions and answer document with all the questions asked during this info session. We answer to this during the info session, but for equal treatment of applicants, we're going to also publish this on the website of the call. I kindly ask you to make use of all these tools, and if you have time to basically attend all the session of this training course, it will be important both for those of you who already know and were successful in application in previous calls, but especially for the newcomers, because although in general the templates of the Prague respect the rules of the project management, there are some specificity related to this designing of concept notes and full applications and all the necessary supporting documents that it would be very useful for you to know. So I don't want to take more of your time. Thank you very much again for attending this training. I wish you all the success in your applications, and I give the floor to my colleagues from GST to start the training. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Florin. Just for all the participants that join in the meantime, please use chat to write your name and the organization that you are coming from, and also please turn off your cameras and mute yourself, just so for the stability of the internet connection. I would like to clarify that we are providing this training as a technical assistance project that is a service contract supporting the contracting authority in this call for proposal, and please refer to guidelines for applicants and the questions and answers document that whose first part should be published this week, as Florin mentioned. In case of any specific issues and any specific dilemmas you have regarding to this call. I will go through the agenda a little bit. As you are aware, this is a 2-day training. You received 2 Zoom links. The link that we are using today, that's the link for today's session. There is another link for tomorrow's session. We are hoping in the first part of the training to go through the call for proposal, to go through the specific objectives of the call, issues related to eligibility of applicants and administrative matters, and then also to provide brief information on the result-based management, designing of the logical sequence related to the log frame matrices, and also on some elements that are important for the preparation of your projects. Around noon, we are hoping to have a short break, and then following that, we will do a part on the budgeting. Currently, you are not supposed to send a detailed budget. You are only submitting a concept note, but there are some elements in the costing of the project and in the budgeting of the project that will still remain important even at this stage. And then around 2 o'clock, we are hoping to continue with the question and answer session, through which we will do the answering of any questions that appear. This is an online training, so if need be, we can always extend. In case that you have plenty of questions, we can also extend beyond 3 o'clock. For day 2, you can see the agenda here on your screens. We will concentrate in the morning of the day 2 on the preparation of the concept notes and some important elements over there. Continue with the break, and then in the afternoon we will present you important details on the process of the concept note assessment, on the contracting process for those of you that will eventually pass to the final stages of this process, and there will be a brief session on prospect and PADOR that my colleagues from my team will present, and we will again end with the question and answer session. I've noticed that few participants have joined in the meantime, so just again a reminder, please use chat to write in your name and the organization that you're coming from. And in case of any questions, also please use chat. Also for the newcoming participants, you can follow the training in Turkish and in Greek. If you desire so, please switch to either Turkish or Greek channel to follow the presentation in Greek or in Turkish. My colleague Boana, who is helping us with the organization of this training, will share with you the presentations in English, in Greek, and in Turkish, so also you can follow. We will be screening the English presentation, but then with your computers you can follow the Turkish and the English and the Greek presentation as well. I will now stop sharing this particular presentation, and I just wanted to show to you the call for proposal, and there you can find it. Links are provided in the presentation. I will also copy the link in the chat. But when you open the link to this call for proposal, this is basically what you get. This is the call for proposal. I know that this is a little bit frightening because there is like 2 million documents over there, but this is usual and typical. And don't be afraid of it. Nothing here is really rocket science. The most important document that you should read at this stage, and I hope that many of you had already done this, are the guidelines for the applicants. This is the document where all the details on the call for proposal are presented. And then again, another important document is this Annex A1, Grant Application Form Concept Note. This is a 5-page document, basically, that you should be completing and submitting by 22nd of July, when there is a deadline for this call. All other documents are currently just for your information. Read them, get familiarized with them, but these are the 2 most important documents for you to use. Okay. So I'm copying the link in chat for any of you who have not yet been familiarized with this call for proposal. This is the link where you can find the documents, and as this slide says, please read the guidelines for applicants carefully and follow the templates, and then you will understand all the provisions of this call. Call is published relatively recently. The reference is provided here on this slide. The deadline for submission of concept notes is 22nd of July, so plenty of time left. Online submission is mandatory, so you are submitting your concept notes through a system which is called Prospect. Tomorrow we will be providing a brief overview of how to register in this Prospect. Before you register in Prospect, you need to register in another system which is called PADOR. So register in Pador well in advance. Please don't wait until the last minute. Don't wait until the deadline to submit your applications, because often it happens that these systems are under maintenance, and they just start maintenance at the moment when you want to submit your project, and it's 5 minutes until the deadline, and then you cannot submit your project. So please try to work on your concept notes well ahead of the deadline, so that administratively you are able to submit your project and be considered for the competition. This is a call for a proposal where you are currently submitting only concept notes, and we are in this stage. These concept notes will be evaluated. We will be discussing this a little bit tomorrow as well, how the process goes. And then in the next stage, if you pass the first step, you will be invited to submit full application form. This full application form is relatively broader document with more details, of course, where you're supposed to present the details of your project, the action plan, activities, but then also the log frame of the project and the budget. These are the two links where you can look for the documents. I've already shared the official one with you, but then also just to clarify that grant support team also has a website. You can see the website on this slide, and on this website we've also published all the documents from the call for proposal, also PowerPoint presentations from the info sessions, and then also you can find the unofficial translations of the call for proposal, guidelines for applicants in Turkish and in Greek, if this maybe helps you in understanding the requirements of the call further. PowerPoint presentations from the info sessions are also available in Turkish and in Greek. So you can also use our website. It's not an official website of the European Commission. It's a project website, but we are just using it to also upload additional documents that perhaps can help you in further understanding of this call. I've kind of like already mentioned what is presented in this slide, the most important documents that set the rules for the call. These are guidelines for the applicants, and then there are templates that you can use when you're applying. Annex A1 concept note, this is the template that you should be using now and completing now, and then if you pass into the next stage, this is the full application form template. There are also various documents that are describing the contractual matters, such as contract, reporting annexes. They are there for your information only. You don't need to do anything with them currently, but they're just presented there so that you are aware of what your obligations as a potential grant applicant will be in the eventuality that you receive funds for the project that you are proposing at this stage. The call is divided into 4 lots, 4 segments, so to speak. If you are applying for this call, you need to be certain which lot you are applying for. You cannot apply for lot 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have to apply for one lot. There were some questions regarding that, so I just wanted to clarify. Guidelines for applicants, they are setting the rules, and they are explaining the overall objectives, specific objectives, added value of the call, and when you read them, you will see that they are divided into various sections that explain the objectives of the program, priorities, eligibility rules, selection and award criteria, assessment process, and the procedures to be followed by the applicants. The overall amount made available under this call, as Torin already mentioned, is 2,250,000. Okay, so 4 lots are presented on this web slide. Maybe you are already aware of them. We have lot 1, which tackles environmental actions, lot 2, which deals with bicommunal confidence building actions, lot 3, which deals with strengthening civil society in the Turkish Cypriot community, and then lot 4. Lot 4 is meant to support new applicants. These are indicative amounts. In the eventuality that contracting authority receives not enough projects to spend all these indicative amounts, it is possible that reallocation between the funds and the lots is done. Just to clarify that. The objective of this call is to support civil society in enhancing trust, dialogue, and cooperation, and promoting European Union values through actions that contribute to promoting the unification of Cyprus. This is a global objective of the aid regulation in general terms. And then there are 4 specific objectives of this call that are relevant and relate to the 4 lots, which I presented in the previous slide. The first one is to increase the capacities of civil society in the Turkish Cypriot community to achieve the targets of the European Green Deal. The second one is to promote dialogue and collaboration among the Cypriot communities via confidence-building measures, joint actions by civil society organizations from the Republic and from the northern part. The specific objective here is addressed by Lot 2 by communal confidence-building actions. The third specific objective is to encourage civil society in the Turkish Cypriot community to pursue meaningful socio-economic change by participating in decision-making, influencing changes, fostering sectoral and cross-sectoral cooperation. And the fourth priority is to especially encourage diversification of EU funding to civil society organizations that had not previously benefited from EU funds in the Turkish Cypriot community. Of importance for this fourth lot and fourth priority is the fact that eligible lead applicants here should be the applicants that previously have not benefited from the grants in the context of the aid regulation in the Turkish Cypriot community. Now we will speak a little bit about the priorities and topics for Lot 1. Lot 1, as I said, deals with environment. These are environmental actions. Ideally, these actions should be designed to bring together Cypriot communities from both sides of the divide to implement actions that relate to environment. And these actions, they can include topics such as biodiversity, marine protection, environmental protection, climate action, agriculture, sustainable agriculture, sustainable consumption, resource efficiency, circular economy. So you can see that the list is relatively wide. It tackles various environmental concerns, of which Cyprus is burdened with many, as we know. So these are the priorities for Lot 1. For Lot 2, we spoke a little bit about it already. Actions should be designed to increase bi-communal interaction between the Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot communities. The topics that are indicatively presented here are human rights, social policy and dialogue. When we say social policy and dialogue, we speak of social inclusion as well. Anti-discrimination, building integrity, which is a topic that basically deals with anti-corruption actions, and then also media freedom. So these are the indicative topics for the Lot 2 and for the priority 2 of this call. Priority 3 deals with strengthening of the civil society in the Turkish Cypriot community. The idea here is to strengthen the impact of civil society in the northern part, including around the topics which I've already listed, and they are repeated also in Lot 4. You will see human rights, social policy and dialogue, health, anti-discrimination, building integrity, and media freedom. And then finally, Lot 4, new applicants. These actions should be specifically designed to increase effectiveness, sustainability, accountability of the civil society organizations in the Turkish Cypriot community who have not previously benefited from EU funding, and across Cypriot public life in particular. They should tackle tangible issues, seminal issues that are of your concern in Cyprus. Again, indicative topics that are provided here are human rights, social policy and dialogue, anti-discrimination, building integrity, and media freedom. On this slide, which was an over-ambitious slide which wanted to include a lot of information. You can see the summary of the call, basically. There are some differences between these 4 lots. Size of grants is one of them. When we say grants, just to be aware of what we are talking about, the term grant relates to the amount of money that you are requesting from the European Commission, from the European Union, from the donor. It's not the overall amount of your project. In your project, in your budget, there will be an amount coming from the EU, and then there will be an amount which is coming as your own co-financing to the action, and that together will sum up to the overall amount of the budget. Grants in lot 1 and 2 are supposed to be between 100,000 and 125,000 euros. In lot 3, the maximum amounts are a little bit higher, up to 200,000 euros can be requested. And in lot 4, where we are dealing with the new applicants, the minimum amount is lower. As you can see, it's 40,000 euros, and the maximum amount is 100,000 euros. Lead applicants in lots 1, 3, and 4 should be established in the Turkish Cypriot community, whereas in lot 2, lead applicants can also be established in the Republic of Cyprus or in the Turkish Cypriot community as well. In lot 4, as we already mentioned, there is another requirement where these applicants also should not have benefited from EU grants in the past. In the documents in the call for proposal on this slide, on this internet link that I shared with you, you will also see an annex which is a list of the previous applicants. So please, I mean, in the eventuality that you're maybe working in the civil society organization where the management has changed and maybe you don't know whether your organization has benefited from grants in via aid regulation, also please check that list. You will see the list of the beneficiaries, of the grant beneficiaries that previously benefited from EU grants there. And if you are one, then please don't act as lead applicant in lot 4. Co-applicants in lots 1, 3, and 4, you can submit your proposal on sole terms. It means that you don't need to have a partner, you don't need to have a co-applicant. You can submit your proposal as an individual organization with no co-applicants. But in lot 2, this is not the case. In lot 2, the applications need to include at least 2 applicants, whereas one comes from the Greek Cypriot community and the other one comes from the Turkish Cypriot community. Duration of the actions is the same for all lots. Minimum is 12 months, maximum is 30 months. Co-financing is also the same for all the lots. 95% of total eligible costs of the action can be requested from the contracting authority, European Union, which means that you need to contribute with 5% of the overall budget to this call. We will discuss this a little bit more when we come to budgeting, because you will see that there is also a possibility to use volunteering costs as your co-financing to the action, to the 50% of the co-financing, but we will clarify that later. And then financing to third parties, so-called re-granting, sub-granting, using your projects to also reach out to smaller scale organizations, or individual civil society activists or media is also possible in lots 1, 2, and 3, but not in lot 4, where re-granting or so-called financial support to third parties is not allowed. I've seen that few participants have joined us in the meantime. Just repeating again, please use chat to write in your name and the organization that you are coming from, and in case of any questions also please use chat to ask any questions that you have. Some important elements, as I already mentioned, in lots 1, 3, and 4, actions, they must take place in Turkish Cypriot community, but they also can take place in the areas that are under the control of the government of the Republic of Cyprus. In Lot 2, actions must take place in the Turkish Cypriot community and in the area under the control of the government of the Republic of Cyprus, because these are bicommunal projects. Quite logically, they should take place in both sides of the divide. If relevant for the description of the action, some of the activities, they can take place in another territory of country outside of Cyprus, so to speak, but they are exceptional and they cannot be a major part of the action. What does it mean? It means that you cannot implement your project in Germany or in France. Maybe some activities will need to take place there, like a study tour maybe, or some visits to some sites, or a conference, or a participation at some of the conferences. But I mean, primarily your actions should take place in Cyprus, and then in lots 1, 3, and 4, primarily in the Turkish Cypriot community. Also, maybe some of you have already been implementing grants under the EU regulation, and you've worked under certain conditions and requirements. A lot of times these things change, so I just wanted to also mention that under this call, under the grants that are going to be eventually awarded, any activity or work under the actions that is not taking place in Cyprus will require prior approval from the contracting authority. So even though maybe you mentioned in your projects that you will be implementing a study tour in, I don't know, Germany, let's say, before the implementation of this activity, you will need to request the approval of the contracting authority to implement this activity. Confidence building measures and joint actions organized by civil society actors are, again, quite logically a mandatory activity, an activity that must take place in Lot 2, but of course you can include them in any other lot. Few other important elements as well. In this call, we have set a list of so-called added values. These added values are listed on this particular slide. They are also, of course, listed in your guidelines. Taking into account these added values in a meaningful way, not just listing them, in your proposals is going to be considered as a plus in your projects. You can also, we will discuss this later, you can check the assessment grids that are available in the guidelines for applicants, and you will see there that one of the questions, only one of the questions, there are many others, but one of the questions also tackles added values. So what are these added values? Collaboration and dialogue between civil society organizations and the duty bearers, local bodies, government in other terms, actions fostering collaboration and dialogue between the Cypriot communities, actions reaching out to remote areas, actions reaching out to marginalized communities or groups, actions that are promoting networks or platforms with European Union or international CSOs to share best practices, and then also actions that propose financial support to third parties, only in lots 1, 2, and 3, because in lot 4 they are not allowed, as we already mentioned. So this is the list of the added values. Also to clarify regarding the obligatory partnership, in lots 1, 3, and 4, you can act individually or with co-applicants. That's fine. You can have co-applicants in lots 1, 3, and 4, but you don't need to. It's not a must. However, in lot 2, the lead applicant has to have a partner. There needs to be 2 organizations that are applying, where one is lead applicant, the other one is a co-applicant. And at minimum, this one applicant needs to come from Greek Cypriot community and the other co-applicant or lead applicant from the Turkish Cypriot community. Of course, while this is not mandatory, the inclusion of co-applicants in other lots is highly encouraged, especially from the 2 communities or from the other member states of the European Union other than Cyprus. As I already mentioned, please, while reading the guidelines, also study a little bit these assessment grids. You will see that in full application form evaluation grid, if the lead applicant applies without co-applicants, the score that they can obtain under question 4.3 is 1, which is a minimum score. So you can understand that in this call, partnership is not mandatory across the lots, but it's very highly encouraged. As I said, if there is anything unclear, any questions whatsoever, please use chat. I will have a look at the chat later on after I finish this part of the presentation, maybe answer some of the important questions. There are some eligibility criteria that are set in any call that is published through EuropeAid, including this one. These are the eligibility criteria for the applicants, for the actions, and for the money, for the costs. So for the applicants, in order to apply for this call, you need to be a legal person registered, be non-profit making organization, be a civil society organization, and established in Turkish Cypriot community or across Cyprus in Lot 2, and be directly responsible for the preparation of your action and implementation of your action. In Lot 4, the lead applicants have to be organizations that have not previously benefited from EU grants. And as I already mentioned, there is an annex to the call for proposals where you have a list of the previous grant beneficiaries that you should consult if you are applying for Lot 4, just in case maybe your organization received some grants in the past and you are not aware of it. So these are the criteria for the applicants: legal person, non-profit making, civil society organization. What does it mean? It means that if you are an individual, an individual civil society activist not backed by any civil society organization, you are not eligible to apply for this call. If you are established outside of Cyprus as an organization, you are also not eligible to be a lead applicant for this call. You can be a partner, which we will come to, but not a lead applicant. So just pay attention to these rules. They are important, and they will be, of course, checked. When we are discussing civil society organizations, please also be aware that we are trying to implement the broadest possible understanding of the term civil society organization, and that this civil society organization, according to the definition under this call, include service-oriented civil society organizations, membership-based civil society organizations, community-based organizations, NGOs, faith-based organizations, foundations, also research institutions, cooperatives, professional business associations, not-for-profit media, to consumer organizations, and then also organizations involved in social dialogue, such as trade unions or employers' organizations. If you have any concerns and any worries in terms of whether you are eligible to apply for this call or not, please use the functional mailbox and write to the contracting authority to inquire about these rules. Partners, co-applicants, as they are called in this EuropeAid calls for proposals, they also have to satisfy the eligibility criteria that are applicable to the lead applicant, meaning they need to be legal persons, not-for-profit, CSOs, not acting as an intermediary. In addition, however, you can also include co-applicants that are established in a member state of a European Union or the territory of the candidate countries, for accession to the European Union. Again, of course, they need to be legal persons, CSOs, not for profit, but as co-applicants, you can also have the organizations that are registered, say, outside of Cyprus, but not in any possible territory of the country, only in those that are member states of the EU, or the member states of the European Economic Area, or the territories of the territories of the candidate countries for accession to the European Union. Maximum number of co-applicants under this call is not defined, minimum is in Lot 2, you need to have 2. But of course, you can have as many co-applicants as you wish, but also look into management of the project. If you have a lot of co-applicants and a lot of organizations cooperating, it is probably going to be very difficult to implement the project. There is another term in this partnership terminology under EuropeAid contracts and EuropeAid calls for proposals, which is called affiliated entities. They are also eligible, and you can have affiliated entities as your partners under the action. but these affiliated entities are the entities that you have a structural link with. In most cases, in the civil society organizations, those would be the federation or registered networks, where maybe the organization that is a lead applicant is participating or being a member of. Affiliated entities, they also have to satisfy the same eligibility criteria as the lead applicants. In the eventuality that maybe several CSOs, they have joined together and they sign some kind of memorandum of understanding, this is not considered a structural link. This is not considered affiliation. So please don't use those types of partnership as a reason to list them as affiliated entities. This can be confusing, and in case that you are concerned about any, if any organization is or is not your affiliated entity, we can discuss later on during Q&A session. And then in the terminology of the collaboration and partnership, there is also the term associates and contractors. Associates are organizations or individuals that are maybe involved in the action and then do have a role to play, but they are not receiving funding from the grant with the exception of per diem or travel costs. Maybe such stakeholders, maybe such organizations will have a part in your actions. So just to clarify that it is possible to list them. And then there are contractors, service providers in most cases, consultants that are maybe providing some services for your project. Please note that the beneficiaries and their affiliated entities, grant beneficiaries, are permitted to award contracts, and but associates, affiliated entities, grant beneficiaries cannot be contractors under the same project. There is an Annex 4 that is published amongst those documents that I showed you in the beginning of the presentation, where you can see the rules for procurement, and those will be the rules that you will be using when doing the secondary procurement under your grants, meaning, outsourcing services or other parts of the action. So I now presented the first part of the presentation. We prepared a little quiz for you, just to see if you understood what we are actually talking about. Please, you should be able to see the quiz now, and just go ahead and answer these few questions that we prepared for you. Thank you. Quiz is anonymous, so I have no idea who is answering what. We just wanted to check if you understood what we are talking about. We'll give it, say, 4 minutes for the quiz. Okay, are we done with the quiz? I will now share the correct answers with you. So if you, and this was a question that we received on chat, as far as I've seen, we received one question. While we were presenting, I'm a private CSO activist, an individual. Can I apply as a lead applicant? No, according to the rules of this call, you cannot. I'm a private company. When I say private company, I mean for-profit company. Can I apply as lead applicant? The answer is also no. I am a school, I'm a university. Can I apply? No. I'm a municipality. Am I eligible? Again, the answer is no. I received a grant under Civil Society 7. Can I apply for Lot 2? The answer is yes. I'm established in Republic of Cyprus. Can I apply as lead applicant for Lot 2? The answer is also yes. And I'm a civil society from UK. Can I apply as co-applicant? The answer is no, because of the Brexit situation. Okay, so this was just a little bit of interaction with you. I know that these online trainings can be, burdensome at some point. So we just wanted to check if you understood what we are talking about. And it's easiest to use these questions as a tool to do that. Okay. I will continue with presenting eligible actions. Again, I see that some participants are joining us throughout the day. Again, I mean, if you join in the meantime, please use chat to write your name and the organization that you're coming from. So, eligible actions should contribute to the objectives of the priorities of this call quite logically. They should meet the call's criteria when it comes to duration, minimum, maximum amounts, co-financing rate. They should take place primarily in Cyprus. Some of the activities, they can take place in another territory or the country, but such activities, they cannot constitute a major part of the action. And examples of potential types of actions are detailed in the guidelines for applicants. I also presented them here under the slides. I will not read them through because you will receive your presentations anyhow after today and then also tomorrow, but you can see that in actions under Lot 1, under environmental actions, there is a really wide list of possible actions that are dealing with climate or environmental pollution, but then also sustainable mobility, then also environmental innovation, gathering of information for environmental protection, improved access to environmental information and justice, and so on and so forth. This list is not like exhaustive. It's only indicative. It's given us, say, an inspiration and also a guideline to you to understand what contracting authority means when they're talking about projects tackling environmental actions and suitable for Lot 1 under this code. Same applies for lots 2, 3, and 4, where we have more or less the same list of indicative actions. I already mentioned previously they should fall under the topics of human rights, social policy and dialogue, anti-discrimination, building integrity, media freedom, and health. And they can include various lists of actions that are presented here. Confidence building measures, strengthening civil society platforms, developing consultation mechanisms between civil society and local bodies in the Turkish Cypriot community, developing structured and functional mechanisms for dialogue between different sectors, policy making and monitoring of strategies, mentoring and coaching of grassroots CSOs, reinforcing rights-based approach to development, improving legal protection of journalists, the diversity and quality of media content, and digital competencies and media literacy across the population with the focus of combating disinformation. Media freedom was not perhaps that much operationalized in the previous calls for proposals. So in the last 3 points, you can see some of the indicative actions that we consider suitable for projects tackling media freedom. Okay, regranting financial support to third parties, as I already mentioned, these are the actions that provide financial support to small projects, initiatives of individual civil society organizations that are relevant for the priorities of this call: freedom of expression, access to information, intercultural dialogue, trust and reconciliation, and so on. And they are eligible in lots 1, 2, and 3, and are also considered added values. You will see in the guidelines also that there is a distinction between eligible types of actions and eligible types of activities. Actions are projects. This is just a synonym for projects. That that kind of terminology is used in the templates for guidelines for applicants under Europe Aid. Activities are smaller scale events that are happening in order to implement an action. So an action is composed of a set of activities. The non-exhaustive list of activities, again, is available on page 14 of your guidelines for applicants. And these are the examples of eligible activities: service delivery, advocacy, organization of meetings, studies, capacity building, community-based awareness campaigns. They are all eligible, as well as policy research, opinion surveys, and so on and so forth. So please study this. You don't need to implement all of these activities, of course. You may implement some of them that are not necessarily listed here, but this is again just to give you an indication as to what types of activities the contracting authority would expect as suitable for funding under this call. The list continues here. Piloting, product development, public campaigns, sharing of information, activities documenting best practices, development of standards for management in line with EU standards, promoting volunteerism, philanthropy, online production, print, radio, TV production, investigative journalism trainings, analytical journalism trainings, media capacity building, innovative approaches. All these activities are eligible under this call. If you decide to enter into financial support to third parties, again, in Lot 4, this is not allowed, but it is possible, not mandatory, but possible in Lots 1, 2, and 3. Just be aware that the maximum amount of financial support per third party is 10,000 euro. What does it mean? It means that you can allocate, following the small call for proposal that you will organize under your project, maximum 10,000 euro to a sub-grantee, to an organization or an activist that is receiving a smaller grant. Third parties are not allowed in Lot 4. Let's again mention that. And in order for third parties to be eligible, they should be civil society activists, journalists, media, or civil society organizations. So you also cannot, for example, do re-granting to private companies, profit-making entities that are not civil society organizations, and so on. Third parties should not be asked for co-financing in their projects. The amount of funds that you are distributing to them should suffice to cover up for their entire action. And also, of course, you cannot use re-granting to obtain financial support for co-financing in another EU project. This is also important to mention. Now, the guidelines and any types of guidelines, they also include a list of ineligible actions. The list is provided here. Actions that are already financed in full by another donor, one-off events such as conferences, actions that are concerned with individual scholarships or sponsorships, they are not eligible under this call. And also projects in which infrastructural works is more than 10% of the direct eligible cost of the budget. So there is a threshold set for the costs related to infrastructural works, and then there is also a threshold set for the cost of equipment and supplies. They can go up to 50% of direct eligible costs in the budget. Why? Because while we understand that civil society may be in need of purchasing of equipment and supplies, and there may be in need of small-scale infrastructural work, then again, we don't see this call as, or the contracting authority doesn't see this call as the call where the actions are only meant to provide equipment for the civil society organizations, or are only meant to deal with infrastructural work activities. As in any other European call, there are also rules related to visibility. Applicants should take all necessary steps to public, not the applicants, but the grant beneficiaries once you receive the funds, to publicize the European Union as a donor to this action. And then there is a guideline for external actions that covers communicating and raising EU visibility. The link is provided here. Of course, this is important, much more important for the implementation of your projects than at this current stage, but it's also important as a highlight because you should be planning some visibility activities under your project. Which is why we also wanted to present this link. Have a look just to understand how EU visibility should be ensured under your projects, and then also plan some activities that are related to the visibility. As a lead applicant, you can submit more than one application per lot under this call for proposal, which means that you cannot submit more than one application per lot under this call for proposal, which means that as a lead applicant, you can theoretically submit 3 or 4 projects to this call for proposals for lot 1, 2, 3, and 4, but not more than one for each lot. Also, you will not be awarded more than one grant under this call for proposal, regardless of how many projects you send to the lots. This is important for you to understand too. And you can act as a co-applicant or an affiliated entity in another application at the same time if you are acting as a lead applicant in some other application. There are no restrictions for the number of times the co-applicants can appear in the applications. And also there are no restrictions when it comes to the number of grants that co-applicants can be awarded under this call. So also study this slide and also these restrictions, because if you, in eventuality, maybe you're one lead applicant, say a CSO called, Blue Sky, I don't know, whatever. And then this CSO Blue Sky, you submit 3 applications for lot 1. Unfortunately, all those 3 applications will need to be rejected because the maximum number of applications that you can send per lot is 1. Okay. And then eligibility of costs. These are the criteria for the eligibility of costs. You can also read them in the section 214 of the guidelines for applicants. I will not read them now. You have them on the slide. What's important is to understand when we were talking about co-financing, there is this 5% co-financing that you need to contribute to the action. Well, half of it can originate from volunteers' work. A lot of civil society organizations in Cyprus, they have volunteers. These volunteers are not paid, but they are contributing to the operation of the action and the civil society organizations in any case. And the contracting authority has decided that in this call, this should also be recognized, and therefore your co-financing can also partially originate from your volunteers. And then there is a list of costs that are not to be included in your budgets. Let me repeat again, currently you are not sending a full budget to this call for proposal. You're only sending an indication on an amount of money that you're applying for. But study also ineligible costs because, maybe some of those you planned, and then when you maybe pass this step 1 and go into step 2, maybe you'll understand that they're actually not eligible. What's important to mention here is that costs that are incurred prior to the signature of the contract are not eligible, so you will only be able to spend money that is incurred after the signing of the grant contract. And then also there are restrictions related to the rent of land, buildings, offices, infrastructural work and renovation. which are arising from the aid regulation and which are tackling the specific situation in the northern part of the island where property rights need to be respected. In reality, that means that if you are planning to do some infrastructural work, first bear in mind that only 10% of your direct costs can be allocated to these purposes, and then also that property where you want to do these property rights and ownership of the property where you want to do this infrastructural work will need to be checked and will need to be approved before you start doing any infrastructural work. Now, this around volunteers, we mentioned already 50% of your co-financing can originate from volunteers, from volunteering work. There is a link provided on this slide where you will see what is the amount of volunteer per day cost that the European Commission considers for various countries, including Cyprus. In Cyprus, this is currently 78 euros. So a day of volunteering, 8 days of volunteering is considered as of 78 euro value. And this is a price that is set in your budgets. You will eventually, if you pass step one, you will be presenting these costs, but then just also for you to know what is the current price for the volunteering that you can rely on. Also, I mentioned maybe some of you implemented projects under the aid regulation previously. In some of them, there were thresholds set for salaries, in some of them not. We have in this call thresholds for salaries for the various categories of people. For project managers, directors, team leaders, the maximum that you can plan for full salary, which means gross salary, which means total cost of employment, is 2,400 euros. For coordinators, researchers, communication officers, project consultants, this is 2,200. And for project assistants, administrative assistants, and so on, this is 1,600. Okay, and these are therefore the maximums that can be planned. Now we have another quiz prepared for you with very brief 3 questions. So let's please do the quiz then, maybe 3-4 minutes for these 3 questions. Okay, so I'll share the correct answers with you. The lead applicant, yes, may submit more than one application per lot under this call for proposal. The lead applicant may not be awarded more than one grant under this call for proposal, and the lead applicant may not be a co-applicant or an affiliated entity in another application at the same time. Let's see. So the lead applicant may not submit more than one application per lot, as we already mentioned. So only one application per lot, please. The lead applicant will not be awarded more than one grant under this call for proposal, as we mentioned. And the lead applicant can be a co-applicant or an affiliated entity in another application at the same time. So just to clarify these important elements of the call. In the meantime, on chat, we received one question. I think, can you elaborate a bit on the following under actions under lot 1? What kind of projects are intended with dissemination and piloting of sustainable and smart agricultural practices and sustainable production and consumption? The contracting authority didn't go at length in explaining what is technically eligible under these, let's call them topics. So if you observe as a civil society organization that in agriculture there are some sustainable or effective practices that are necessarily not used across Cyprus, maybe you want to pilot some of them, maybe you want to disseminate knowledge on them across the farmers in Cyprus. Let's say maybe this is one example. Sustainable production consumption, this can be related to food waste, this can be related also to using alternatives to chemicals that are sometimes used in production, monitoring the use of chemicals in the production facilities. I'm just giving you some of the possible examples. But as I said, the contracting authority has not went into length as to explain what's necessary, what is eligible here and what is not eligible here when we talk about sustainable and smart agricultural practices and sustainable consumption. Under types of activity, page 14, what is intended with piloting and product development? There were projects in the past where some products were prototyped. They may be products that are related to cultural heritage of Cyprus, for example, that later on then can be showcased as symbolic to Cyprus, that kind of product development. We had some experiences with in the past. Piloting, again, maybe there are some, as I've already mentioned with agriculture, maybe there are some practices, not necessarily only in agriculture, but across the sphere that you would like to pilot and use the opportunity of this project to see if they can be implemented. Piloting can happen across the sphere in social services. It can happen in education sector. Of course, it implies cooperation with local bodies and duty bearers in those aspects of the work. But the testing would be a synonym, I guess, when we talk about piloting. I think this is the question that we received. I hope it answers your questions. Okay, we come now to the end of the first part of the presentation, which was mainly meant to follow through the elements of the call and the criteria and all these rules that are set. Maybe you've heard all this already at the info sessions, I don't know, but it was important to clarify them anyhow. So I would suggest that we maybe take, say, a 10-minute break and come back here around 11:22. And in these 10 minutes, please use again chat. If there are any questions that you want to ask us, send them via chat, and then we'll have a look after the break and answer them. Thank you very much. So we'll be back at 11:22. Thank you. The 10-minute break has expired. Thanks for joining. Are we back?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to let everyone know. It seems that some of you have not actually signed in yet.
Belirtmek
Please,
istiyorum.
again,
Bazılarınız
use
kayıt
chat,
yaptırmamış.
just
Lütfen.
your name and the organization that you are coming from, please, because some of you have not actually been listed here, and unfortunately, a lot of you have no names listed under your Zoom profiles, so we have no idea where you're coming from. And we would like to learn more about it. So if possible, please, just for those that didn't sign their names and the organizations that they're coming from, use chat to do that. Also, it seems that this chat may not be working for all of you. So if you have any questions that maybe you try to type in and I have not answered them, in the eventuality of that, during questions and answers, I'll be answering them. I'll invite you to ask questions verbally also, because of the large number of people that are at the training. Maybe the chat didn't work at all times. Okay. Thank you, Munever. Please, the remaining participants also let us know who you are. I will continue with the presentation now. In this session, I will try briefly to... Someone is requesting meeting summary with artificial intelligence companion. I will click not now because I don't know what this is. Okay, let's start from here. So, I will try to briefly familiarize you with some of the important concepts that are important concepts, and also I should say tools for the development of your concept notes in this segment of the training. First, let me clarify: people that are reading your projects are not Nobel Prize winners, and please try to use simple language as much as possible to explain to us what is exactly that you're trying to achieve. You know, sometimes you take a lot of things for granted, especially if you are a specialist in a certain area, which is of course very good and to be congratulated, but sometimes these specialists have a problem in articulating what is exactly the point of their project and the point of the activities and the actions that they are planning. So, you know, once you do your concept notes, if there is time, I know that most of the people start planning and writing concept notes like 2 days before the deadline, but this is not very good practice. And maybe, you know, like share those documents with some people that have experience in project management and ask them for their opinion. You know, is this clear? You know, will people understand what we're trying to achieve with this project of ours? Because often, unfortunately, lots of good ideas are not very well articulated on this paper, and unfortunately we are using generic templates, and you need to present those ideas in those generic templates. You know, there is no other way of presenting them. So this is why I kind of like wanted to share this little picture with you. For the beginning, the first concept that I think is very important for you to understand is result-based management. What is result-based management? It's managing results. You know, sometimes we are saying, you know, we've done 10 trainings, or maybe I can say we had so much, you know, participants at this particular training, and I can go as and say, 70 people participating at this training, 100 people participated at this training. It's a very good success, you know, but at the end of the day, what is the point if none of you actually understood anything that I'm trying to explain to you? You know, these are the results. Results are changes in your knowledge, in your attitudes, and so on and so forth. And very often it's very difficult when reading the project. I don't want to be overly critical, but also I think it's important to mention, to understand what are the actual results, what is the point of all those activities that people are proposing. So what are some elements of result-based management? Clearly identifying target groups and final beneficiaries. You will see in your concept notes that there is often a mention of target groups and final beneficiaries. It can be confusing, this terminology. Target group is the group that you're targeting directly through your project. You know, my target group for this training, this is like the participants that are currently participating at the training. And final beneficiaries may be your colleagues and the remainder of the civil society sector in Cyprus or elsewhere. But I mean, to understand the difference between these two terms, maybe that can help. Then also defining realistic expected results based on appropriate analysis, Sometimes we see also lots of overambition in the project, saying, we will propose 10 pieces of new legislation or legal texts. Well, maybe that this is overly ambitious. And then also, are these legal texts under your jurisdiction? Can you actually help them to pass the relevant legislators and so on and so forth? Then also identifying and managing risks. This is another element of the result-based management. When you are considering your projects, please also be risk averse, understand what could happen to hinder the implementation of your planned activities and your planned results, and how this is going to be mitigated and how is this going to be addressed. Monitoring progress towards results with the use of appropriate indicators. Again, what does this mean? Maybe my target for this training was, 200 participants or maybe 100, now I have this and that number. If I aimed at 200, then obviously I failed, So also be realistic in setting up of these indicators. Why are they important? They are important to understand whether your project is progressing towards the targets that you planned. Increasing knowledge by learning lessons and integrating them into decisions, reporting on results achieved and the resources involved. So all these elements, they constitute this concept of result-based management, where the emphasis is on results. And I think that this is important for you to look into and perhaps study a little bit more, because you'll be asked while preparing your concept notes to explain who your target group is, who your final beneficiaries are, what are the results that you expect to achieve through this project that you are proposing, what are the risks, how will you manage them. And you need to present that in 5 pages, because concept notes are very brief documents and they go up to the maximum of 5 pages. Maybe sometimes to understand the result-based approach is useful to compare it to activity-based approach. On this slide, you can see a little bit of difference, While we are saying, in terms of the activities, we had 20 meetings, Meetings are activities. We had 20 meetings. Fine. Obviously, you met a lot, but what does it mean? What is the outcome of all of these meetings, Maybe also English has so many terms for objectives, goals, results. Maybe sometimes it's useful to compare activities with the goals. So concentrate on your results, please, when presenting your project ideas and your project plans. What are these results in the context of grants? There are 3 levels of these results in the context of grants and in the context of the official log frame approach of the European Commission. Impact, which is the overall objective, outcome or outcomes, which is specific objective, and then outputs or results, which are on the 3rd level. In this slide here, you can perhaps understand a little bit of the difference there. It's a hierarchy of goals. You start from inputs, your budget, your human resources, and there are activities, which are tasks, and these activities are then transformed into outputs. Outputs are products or services that are delivered. The output of today's event for us is a training, Outcome on the other level has a little bit of hierarchy there. I mean, it's a higher goal. It should tell us what is the intermediate effect on our target group. In the context of this training, our outcome should be in the increase of the level of information you have on this call and on the knowledge that you have when it comes to preparation of your concept notes. And then on the highest level in this chain, there is impact, which is the widespread improvement in society or in the sector. It's a long-term goal which is not necessarily implemented through your project. We will not change the outset of the civil society in Cyprus through this little training that we are implementing today, but maybe we are striving to achieve a broader goal. So, because you will see this terminology being repeated, results and then outputs, outcomes, impact in the concept notes, and then also in the full application form, especially in the full application form stage, where you also need to submit the full log frame of your project. It's useful to start from this very simple explanation as to what are the levels of these results that we are talking about, what are their names, and what is the definition of these terms. In this slide, this is the same that I already explained kind of like previously, but it's just an illustration of the result chain from the Commission, European Commission's DG NEAR guidelines on the monitoring. And again, you can see here the terminology which I used: outputs, outcomes, impact. Also, please be aware that there is the accountability ceiling, as they call it in the theory of this log frame. You know, your project is kind of like, it ends on the level of the outcomes, and then you cannot be accountable for the impact as the project itself. You will only contribute to the implementation of your impact plan. We expect you to currently present in the concept notes only this information that is presented here. I don't know if you can see this column which says activities, outputs, outcomes, impact, but it should reflect your full log frame, which has a logic which is explained on the right-hand side. The global objective, as I mentioned, will not be achieved by this project alone, by your project alone. It requires the impacts of other programs and projects. So it is a higher goal of your project. We still expect, at least at the full application form, that you will be providing some indicators as to the achievement of this impact. But it's not under your control. It's outside of your control. And it's also outside of the accountability ceiling of your project. So consider it a higher goal that this project of yours is contributing to. On the other hand, specific objectives, they should be achieved by your project. These specific objectives should be a result of your project implementation, and they should ideally, logically, be some kind of benefits for your target groups. Try not to complicate too much in your log frames and also in your concept notes. These projects are significant in terms of funding that is provided to the Turkish Cypriot community, and especially civil society in the Turkish Cypriot community, but then also they are not large-scale programs. So try to minimize the number of specific objectives to the extent possible. You know, they should still explain your project, but perhaps 1, 2, 3 at maximum should appear in your log frames. Perhaps more than that would be too complex for the size and the scope of the projects that we are talking about. And then also, what's important is to make clear distinction between the specific objectives and the outputs. Specific objectives are changes on the level of your target group, systems, etc., etc. Outputs are tangible services, products, studies, perhaps study tours or something like that that are produced as the result of the project, and they are on the lower level. Now, underneath the log frame approach, there is this concept of the problem tree analysis. I mean, there is a lot of content on the internet that you can use, and of course use it. We just wanted to show you a little film that explains this concept and this tool that could be useful for you while you're preparing your concept notes. So I will stop sharing the screen, and I will kindly ask Bojana just to try to screen this little video that we thought may be useful for you to watch to understand this concept of the problem tree analysis. Can you hear it? I mean, I don't think that the sound is working.
We can't hear it yet. There's no sound.
Some problem with the sound. We will try again.
Now I can hear Alexandra.
Yes. I know, but there was something with this video. Anyhow, let me share the link in your chats. Maybe you can watch individually at your computers because there is some problem with the sound sharing. Yeah, it's a small video that just explains to you the concept of this problem tree analysis. Maybe try yourself on your computers. We'll give it a few minutes. Maybe sound will be working on your computers yourself, and then just to familiarize yourself with this concept. Can you see the link in the chat? Okay, I'll give it a few minutes just for you to watch it.
Yes, it's audible when you open it on YouTube.
Okay, thanks. It's a short video. I hope that you've seen it. The link is shared with you. As I said, there is really plenty of content online just to familiarize yourself with the concept of this problem tree analysis. This is best to be done in a group. Civil society organizations are supposed to be, consisted of members. Maybe gather your members, maybe even members of your target group, which would be the ideal situation actually, to understand the logical framework of your project, to understand, what are you trying to achieve, what are the objectives, and then to logically list them somehow so that there is a hierarchy between them where the outputs are leading to outcomes and the outcome to the impact. This is one chain example where we just presented the impact and then we didn't go further. It's also, very, 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 how to say, using blueprints in this log frame processes is sometimes a problem because people just then, do copy paste from them. It's important that you go through this process of planning of your projects alone. But here is one example of a result chain where as an impact, you can see an overall objective, which is to contribute to the generation of knowledge and evidence that is relevant for the reunification of Cyprus. We recommend that your impact statements are left to one statement. That is probably the best for the scope and the size of the projects that you will be planning. And then we'd also recommend that there are maximum 3 specific objectives that you're planning under your project. It's a recommendation. I mean, if you need more, it's fine, but just as a recommendation. And then on the level of the outputs, you can see some of the outputs. 3 of them, for example, are presented in this particular case. What kind of specific objective can we actually have when it comes to generation of knowledge and evidence that is relevant for the reunification of Cyprus? In previous projects, there's been studies on harmful chemicals that are affecting both communities. There's been studies on the media portrayals of Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots in the media, and so on and so forth. So maybe this is something that you see as your specific objective to understand the how the media portrays the communities on the island. And then maybe on the level of outputs, you will have one study, one film produced or something similar to that. I hope this helps. We also wanted to kind of like present it as an illustration so that you understand what this impact outcome outputs are. What are some types of the outcomes that a person can find in projects? New policies, changes in the status, such as socioeconomic status, conditions, behavior, practices, skills, level of functioning, knowledge, changes in perceptions, attitudes, feelings, beliefs, or values. These are some of the types of changes that are supposed to affect you and that are supposed to be positive mostly at the end of the day, and that are supposed to affect your target groups. This is an important concept related to the log frame approach are also assumptions and risks. Assumptions are the conditions for the actual achievement of the desired changes, and the risks are the factors that may hinder the achievement of results. When you are planning your results and when you're planning your projects, also don't only think about the results, but also about the assumptions and risks that may affect the implementation of those results that you are presenting to us. It only gives an indication that you took planning seriously, and also it gives an indication of careful consideration of the implementation stage of your project, because every result on every level, especially on the specific objectives and outputs, is prone to have some risks that may affect their implementation. For example, we could have planned this training today and internet could have broken down and then no training whatsoever. I think this is the easiest illustration of what the risk could be. So result-based management log frame approach, this is one concept which is very relevant and important for the preparation of the projects, and then the concept notes too. Another concept that is also very relevant is also stakeholder analysis. What is a stakeholder analysis? Why you should do stakeholder analysis? Because you are not implementing your project ideas in a vacuum, you know, where there is no one. There is your target group. There are various local bodies. There are some opponents and some that are opposing your project activities. All of them should be taken into account, identified, analyzed, if possible, engaged, and their views, their influences, their interests managed within any project. Which is why it is important also to analyze your stakeholders when you're preparing your projects, and you will be asked in your concept notes to present a little bit of your stakeholder analysis very briefly. As I said, this is a 5-page document, but then again, it will be asking you to present the stakeholder analysis too. What is a stakeholder? It's an English term, not necessarily translatable into various languages. It's a person, group, organization, which can positively or negatively be impacted by the actions or activities that you are proposing. On this slide, you can just see one illustration of all possible stakeholders that one CSO has taken into account when they were planning their project. Donor is a stakeholder as well. I mean, you are dependent on them whether to fund your project or not. Your strategic partners, regulators, providers. When we say providers, what do we mean? Service providers. Maybe you need someone with a specific knowledge to implement one of the activities under your project. And then also on wider scale, and other NGOs, other civil society organizations, local authorities, media, communities, all of these groups, all of these social constructs and groups are influenced and may be influenced by your project, and their interests, their views should be taken into account and considered. You will not be able to present a 20-page stakeholder analysis in concept notes. It's like maybe a few sentences, half a page maximum, but it should reflect your thorough analysis of all these persons, organizations, and actors that are surrounding your projects. Stakeholder engagement is very often regarded as a fringe activity, as they say. You know, sometimes you don't have time and you don't analyze them, but nevertheless, every failing project has failed in understanding what the stakeholders wish, and perhaps was overambitious. So it is an important element of project planning, and therefore this concept of stakeholder involvement and stakeholder analysis is an important element that you should take into account. When we speak of stakeholders, they are not necessarily your partners, but they are also your partners. You know, I mean, it's a wider term. On these few slides, I'm just reminding you on the partnership roles. We already discussed a little bit what is the lead applicant, who are the co-applicants, what does it mean in affiliated entity. But also, like, it's very important for you to understand that the lead applicants have the financial responsibility for the implementation of the entire action. And the other organizations, co-applicants, they are involved in the action, but this is not a multi-partner project that you are applying where lead applicant will do their work and their activities, and then co-applicants will do their work and their activities. You're supposed to work on these activities jointly. And then co-applicants will be sending financial reports and activity reports and supporting documents to the lead applicant, and the lead applicant will be, as they say, the sole interlocutor, when the main communicator, the only communicator, in fact, vis-a-vis contracting authority when it comes to the implementation of a particular project. Please also be careful when choosing your co-applicants. You will send your concept notes, you will indicate who your co-applicants are, and then maybe you're invited to submit full application form, and all of a sudden you understand that these co-applicants are actually not very serious, they don't want to work with you. You assume that they can do stuff, but they can't, and so on and so forth. This is a problem because we are assuming that if you tell us that this organizations will be your co-applicants, that they will indeed remain your co-applicants at the full application stage of proposal. But then also, if you pass into the next step in the implementation of your project. So try to agree with your co-applicants on every aspect of the implementation of the project, even at this stage, and be certain that you can actually rely on them and that you can continue working with them throughout the implementation of the project, because replacing a co-applicant is a very difficult procedure that may not necessarily be even accepted if your project is awarded, and therefore you need to work with the people who you can rely on and who you can trust. Especially in bicommunal projects, this is very, very important. I've already talked a little bit about this, but just to mention again, this distinction between final beneficiaries and target groups. In your concept notes, you'll be asked to define who your target groups are, who your final beneficiaries are. And the easiest way to distinguish between two of them is to consider target groups as groups that are directly targeted by your project, benefiting from your action, and the final beneficiaries as those that are only benefiting in the longer term at the level of the society or the sector. To illustrate again, target group of this particular training, participants, you of this training, and then final beneficiaries, civil society, let's say in Cyprus. That's the easiest way to illustrate the difference between these two terms. You need to define them, you need to describe their needs, constraints, and explain the relevance of your proposal to those needs and constraints in your project, and also present any participatory process, ensuring their participation in the project proposal development. So there is sufficient time left, even though, of course, the timing is not the best. It's summer, it's very difficult to work under these conditions, but it would be the best to consult your target groups when you are preparing your projects at this stage, just to check whether your assumptions on their needs and constraints are valid and whether they accept those that you want to offer through your projects. Now, another short quiz that we prepared for you with only 2 questions. We'll give it a few minutes for you to fill it in. Okay, thank you for answering. I can see that mainly you were interested in answering question number 1 and not question number 2. The impact is the long-term expected effect of the action fulfilling the overall objective. Yes. The outcomes are the long-term expected effects of the action fulfilling the specific objectives. Also, yes, but distinguish between long and short term, because the outcomes are supposed to be produced by your project, not immediately after the contract is signed. Okay, so the last concept that I wanted to talk about is sustainability. Of course, any donor is interested in funding sustainable projects. What does it mean sustainable, those that are accepted by the community, those that are owned by the local stakeholders, those that are increasing on the sustainable terms capacities of the involved parties, those that are ensuring environmentally friendly practices, those that remain after the project has ended. We've seen many projects that are implemented through the support of European Union, many other donors. During the implementation of the project, everything is wonderful. After the closure of the project, you don't see a stream of action being continued. You don't see a long-lasting change. So in your concept notes, you will be asked to describe the sustainability aspects of your project, and also please consider that. We provided a little bit of a checklist, that you can use to understand whether what you're planning is sustainable. Will there be sufficient funds available to implement the services that you're starting with the project once the project is over? Very important question to ask yourself. Will outputs under the project remain available for the interested public after the project ends? For example, training, studies, policy papers. Are you going to put them at least online so interested parties can read them if they are interested in what you produced? Are post-implementation operation and maintenance identified responsibilities for those activities? If you are purchasing some equipment, who will use this equipment after the project ends, and how will you ensure that it's used for the benefits of the project purposes? Is the cooperation between grant beneficiaries likely to continue after the project? Also very important element, especially for bicommunal projects. We wouldn't like to see artificial cooperation between two organizations happening under these projects just for the sake of, obtaining the funds. But we would like to fund partnerships that are long-lasting, that have past, present, and the future. And have you made sure that your project is environmentally friendly? Of course, this is very important across the lots, but especially for lot 1, where environment is the main purpose. And then just a few more remarks on the action planning. In your concept notes, you'll be asked to list main activities. Please understand that some of these activities have preparatory stages. For some of them, you will need to procure service providers, for example, which may take time. You will need to develop tenders. In some cases, you will need to have these tenders launched, receive offers, evaluate them. This all takes time, so try not to be overambitious with the timing. Better to plan a little bit longer duration than you originally think is needed, than to need to explain later on when your project is awarded why it took so much more time than originally anticipated to implement your activities. And then as of related to this, just one more quiz to go. We are asking you what is the maximum duration of the actions under this code. Is it 12 months, 24 months, 30 months, or 36 months? Okay, so I think most of you answered. The correct answer, of course, is 30 months. Please don't plan your projects that are above 30 months. That is a mistake that can maybe even disqualify you from the processes. We've reached the end of the morning's training, and now we will have a 1-hour break. Stretch your legs, have some food. We will continue at 1 o'clock. But we will stop recording, of course, but we will leave this platform open during this 1 hour. If any one of you has any questions, again, please use chat to ask them, and then we are back at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much. Clock now, so we will continue. We will continue with the afternoon session. Maybe give it a few minutes because some new participants are coming in. Just to remind everyone, please sign your name in chat and the organization that you're coming from if you have not done so. In the afternoon, we will discuss a little bit about budgeting. My colleague Nilay will present that part, and then also please, if any questions, just use chat to ask them, and then we will open the floor to questions and answers following the presentation. In the meantime, just to clarify, 2 questions were received. I hope that the participants who asked them are with us. Can local organizations be partners in the projects? Yes. If by local organizations you mean organizations that are established in the Greek Cypriot community or in the Turkish Cypriot community, yes, they can be partners in the project. In lot 2, this is mandatory to have minimum 2 applicants, one from Turkish Cypriot community, another one from Greek Cypriot community, and in other lots this is not mandatory, but it is encouraged. And then also the other question that was asked, can the target groups be the final beneficiaries as well? Target groups are perhaps more specific than the final beneficiaries. Maybe you are targeting, let's say, 10 civil society organizations, and those will be your target groups. And your final beneficiaries are all civil society organizations in Cyprus. So both of them are civil society organizations, but in terms of the target groups, you will be working with them directly. So this should not specifically be the same group of people, because in every project we have groups that are directly benefiting from the project. They are maybe individuals, maybe organizations, maybe they are environmental actors as well. And in terms of the final beneficiaries, there are larger groups that are only indirectly receiving benefits from the project, but not directly, so to speak. I hope that this clarifies these 2 questions. As I said, we didn't see any other questions in chat, but if there are any, please just use, throughout the presentations, use the chat to ask us anything. Just to check whether Nila, you are with us? Can we continue with the budget part?
Not yet.
She's trying to connect.
Okay, we'll give it a few more minutes. There was another question also about PowerPoint presentations. Some of you were not able to open them when you downloaded them. We will share them with all of the people who registered for the training. After the training, we will send an email with the presentation. So if perhaps any of you did not register for the training and we don't have your emails, it's also important to share those emails with us so that we can add them to the email list. And then with this email list, you will receive the presentations. If you scroll through chat, you will see, for the participants who have joined us recently, you will see that presentations were shared. Yes, thank you, Aysel. Aysel also reminding us on our website, you can also find PowerPoint presentations and PADOR guidance. Aysel, can you just maybe also share the link to the website for people who are perhaps not familiar with it? Yeah. Thank you. So you have a link to our website. Please use it. Under news section, you will find the guidelines, translation of the guidelines into Turkish and Greek, also today's presentations, also those presentations from the PowerPoint. In a few days, there will be also a video recording of this training because it will take us some time to edit it a little bit. And again, if any questions, please use chat to answer. Hello, Nilay. All well?
Hello. Hello. Yes. Thank God.
Okay. So we will continue then with the budget presentation on the budgeting, and then later on, if any questions, we'll answer them. Thank you.
Yes, let me share my screen. Yes, thanks for bearing with us. Here we are with the most interesting subject of all times in relation to project management.
Ζήτημα βεβαίως όσον αφορά τη διαχείριση έργων, ο προϋπολογισμός.
To create a budget, how
Ve nasıl bir bütçe oluşturulur ve bu aşamada
overall grant amount that you are going to indicate in your application. So, as a reminder, you are not supposed to send the budget at this moment during the CN stage, as you know. Let's just clear my screen. Yes, I hope you are seeing my screen. This is a restricted call, as you know. We have been repeating this, which means that at this stage you are going to submit a concept note, and later on you will be asked, if you pass the first stage, you will be asked to submit a full application, with which you are supposed to be submitting a budget. So currently, you don't have to stress about drafting a full-fledged budget on a very specific template, which will require a lot of time. But at this current stage, you only need to indicate the grant amount and the grant percentage. Let me just show you what we mean by indicating this amount. Where will you indicate it? What will you have to do? So this is it. I hope it's visible. So we might have mentioned this during the info sessions. All the applicants, both the lead applicants and the co-applicants, will have to create their PADOR accounts in order to be able to in order for the lead applicant to be able to submit the proposal on Prospect. So this is a screenshot from Prospect. Once you do your PADOR account, and only then you will be receiving your Europaid ID number, and then you will be able to submit your proposal on this platform. So this is the second section of Prospect, where you indicate the title of your action, which means project, the title of your project, the language is English in any case, in this call. And here we are. This is exactly where you indicate the grant amount, which is the EU contribution. In other words, which is the amount that you are requesting from the EU. And this is where you will be indicating the percentage of this grant. I'm going to explain this more in detail regarding the calculations and how to logically think about this calculation, not to make any mistakes, because there are two very specific thresholds which you have to take into consideration while writing this amount and this percentage. So let me shift back to our presentation. I'm going to give you all the information, and then I'm going to come back to this section so that hopefully by the end of my presentation, this screen is going to make a bit more sense, and it's going to make more sense how to indicate what things into what to take into consideration while you are calculating this specific amount, and what to take into consideration while you are calculating this specific percentage. Yes. So, we're not supposed to submit a budget, but whatever you indicate, whatever you specify, state in your concept note, it's going to be binding for you for this stage, and then later on for the full application stage. Although you are not submitting a budget, the amount that you are indicating at this period, at this stage with the CM, you can only make certain very limited changes to it. So you have to be very careful with what you are claiming, what you are declaring, what you are aiming for, how you are designing your project, the budget amount, all these things. I mean, it has to be as close to the whole thing, whole application, the final shape of your application as much as possible, by which I mean the full application. So please don't make, you have to make an indicative estimate, but try to be as realistic as possible with the cost, and don't overpromise, especially with your with what you are aiming for with your activities. And I mean, you need to be realistic with your managerial capacity. You have to be realistic with your financial capacity, and also considering the context. Try to also remind yourself that we need to be Cypriot realistic, because living in this country, we experience even further delays while trying to get to, do certain things. So don't think like, okay, this is a project and I'm going to get this service, I'm going to buy that amount, and it's just like I can do this in a week. No, try to imagine all the problems that we are experiencing on a daily basis with electricity cuts, with, trying to import things, all the delays, transportation, blah, blah, and then try to figure out what sort of a timeline you are going to need for your project, and what sort of costs you are going to incur to undertake this project. It's difficult, but not impossible. Yeah, I mean, being realistic is important, and also try to get to an amount which is cost effective as well. By which, what we try to mean is, when you are indicating a cost, you have to be able to back that up with certain market research, daily rates of things, plus inflation. I mean, we are in the end of June right now, and most probably you will be able to start undertaking your projects next year this time, next year June, July. I mean, that's the indicative timeline of signature of the contracts. So if you luckily succeed, you will be starting this project in a year's time, and that will be just the start of the project. So you have to think of the cost, how the cost that you are going to indicate now is gonna look in a year's time, or in a year's time you are going to start it, plus within the project duration that you're going to undertake your project. Let's say if it's 30 months, 1 year plus 30 months. If you are going to take a service by the second year of the project, what's the cost going to be by then? So also, I mean, do your market research, be realistic, but also think about the inflation as well. With cost-effective budget, what we also mean is this: I mean, needs will be coming to your mind. You are definitely thinking of certain needs when you are designing a project anyway. I mean, in its general framework as well, and also when you are thinking of your budget. But please question it. I mean, is this cost really needed for me to undertake my project? Is this cost really needed to undertake a certain activity? Do I really need to buy these 2 brand new MacBooks, laptops? Or could I as well buy second-hand laptops, which will also do my job, and indicate, I mean, direct the remaining amount for activities that I'm going to design directly for the target group. I mean, certain things that will benefit the target group directly. I mean, question these things when you are trying to get to this budget total. I mean, it has to be cost effective. It has to show. I mean, and by show I mean literally in the full application call, you will have to show that certain costs are needed. There's a certain section in the budget that you need to show your calculations and also show that this cost is definitely required for you to undertake certain activities. So think about the next stage when you are doing your calculations right now. All the costs should be related to the implementation of the planned activities, and without making any profit. And by profit, I mean, you know what profit is, but if in any case you unintentionally make a profit as well, this profit in the end will have to be reinvested into the project as well. So there's no way with making a profit in these projects. It's not possible. The co-financing concept.
Τώρα, η χρυσή χρηματοδότηση.
In the guidelines, the amounts mostly focus on what you are going to receive.
Ο συνολικός προϋπολογισμός που θα λάβετε από την ΕΕ.
The grant percentage.
But you
have to think of your financial capacity as well. How much co-financing that you are going to invest in this project. I said,
αυτό το έργο και επίσης
the waiting room windows keep opening in my screen. If you can remove me from being a co-host because it disrupts me all the time. Thank you.
I'm admitting whoever joins.
Yeah, I keep having these windows all the time. Thank you. So yes, the total budget is to reflect both costs to be covered by the EU grant and your co-financing. So to reverse this around, the total budget equals the EU money and your money that you are investing in the project. Okay, then comes the question, well, how am I going to find this money to invest in the project? I'm getting this EU grant, but do I have the volunteer basis to work for me, or do I have the membership base to give me donations so that I can create this fund to invest in the project? I mean, you have to question all these as well. Will you be able to find resources from other donors? Because EU grant is quite clear to what amount and what percentage you can request. But from your side, what you are going to invest, or if you are getting this from other donors, especially the money from the other donors, it should have no connection with any EU budget. It shouldn't be an EU resource. You have to make sure of that. It can be from a country's embassy, or it can be from other international organizations, but you have to make sure that it's not from the EU budget. So yes, there are. I mean, there could be many different ways to finance your investment to the project. Self-financing, sponsorships, other donors, embassies, your own fundraising activities during the project. I mean, you don't have to really, like this question came up before during our previous calls, that it was asked whether you have to show the whole amount of co-financing in a bank account during your application. No.
Bir eş finansman tutarının tamamını bir banka hesabında göstermeniz gerekiyor mu tam başvuru aşamasında? Bir soru geldi. Hayır. Elbette başka bir aşamada tabii ki finansal kapasitenizi
You are going to need to show your accounts,
να στείλετε τους λογαριασμούς σας,
your accounting documents, let's say, to prove your financial capacity. But this is not to say that you need to deposit the whole co-financing amount that you're going to invest in the project. So I just wanted to clarify that. In this particular call, co-financing in kind is not accepted except for the volunteers work. And if I am to demonstrate this with an example, let's say if a company is donating a generator, you can't say that, okay, this generator, it's worth, it's like 10,000 euro, and I would like to, show this generator in kind contribution, and I am, using this for my co-finance. That's not possible, unfortunately. But volunteers work is possible. And how can you use this? I mean, it's a very practical way as well to finance maximum 50% of your co-financing. And how it's done is the volunteers in your membership base, or if you are going to find new volunteers, doesn't matter really. Their daily input is worth 78 euros daily. So if you have volunteers, they work for your project, and their daily input is charged as 78 euros, which in other words, we can say that if someone comes and works for you voluntarily, they are in a way donating 78 euros for you. And that contributes to your co-financing up to the maximum of 50%. And this is applied at the moment as well with our currently running CSA project, which is going quite successfully at the moment. Yes, I mean, if you need any further information relating to the co-financing, you can go and see the relevant sections in Prague as well. So it's good to remind ourselves of the thresholds assigned to each lot before we start calculating our budget and the grant amount that we are going to request. So if you are applying to, I mean, this section, this doesn't really interest us when we are calculating our budget and grant amount, because this is the money that the Commission has allocated to each lot. Of course, it gives you an indicative idea of the competition, but what is interesting us more is this section here. So if I am applying to lot 1, these are the thresholds. I can't apply to 90,000 euros. That's below the limit. I can apply to 150,000 euros. That's above the limit. But if I'm applying to lot free, I can go up to 200,000. And this is the money that you are requesting from the EU. I mean, I repeat this. The amounts, this is directly from the guidelines, page number 6. These are the amounts that you are going to request from the EU. This is not your total budget. This is not the total cost of the project. So this, for instance, this 100,000 euro could be 90% of something, which is your total budget. Or it could be in the lower end, this 100,000 euro is 60% of something, which is your total budget. Yeah, let's work on an example to try to a bit clarify this a bit more. And also the fact that between your concept note and FAF, you can only do 20% change. So you shouldn't exceed this limit. Let's say at the concept note stage, at this particular stage, you are requesting 120,000 euro. What did we say? I mean, we said that we are going to indicate that here, yeah? 120,000 euro and the relevant percentage. So we are requesting 120,000 euro now, and we decided that the percentage of this grant is 95. This is how we are designing it. And we decided that our financial capacity can only serve for 5%. That's why, I mean, we can only contribute with 6,000 euro. That's why we are requesting 95% of our budget of the total cost of the project, which makes 120,000. But of course, you haven't drafted the budget at this moment when you were calculating this, although you did your market research. In the meantime, some different ideas, maybe this could be a missed cost of an activity, or you decided that you might add an activity to your project, and that will, of course, incur more costs. And you decided that you are going to increase the grant amount that you are applying for. So the difference between these two, so now you indicate this amount, and in the full application, you decide, okay, I am, you know, requesting this amount at the moment. Let's see, let's check if this is viable. This particular amount is like only, what is it, 4%-ish. 4%, what was the percentage? It is 20%, up to 20%. I can increase or I can decrease the grant amount that I am requesting. So by the first stage, I only change this amount by 4%. This is perfect applicable. I could have gone up to 20%. I'm going only 4% up or 4% down, doesn't matter. This is possible. I have done this. It's good. So right now, if I'm going with this amount, if I'm requesting this particular grant amount, this means that I'm requesting 94%. And in order to be within these thresholds, I am also increasing my own contribution, which now is 7,000. What would have happened if I kept this at 6,000? Then I would have gone down the minimum threshold of my own contribution. which would cause the problem. So whilst I'm increasing this, I had to also increase this a bit because the least percentage that I'm contributing to my total budget has to be 5%. I can go down. It can't be 4.8 because if this was 6,000, it was going to be 4.8. That's not possible. Let's look at the second example. Initially, I requested 114,000 euro, and later, during the first stage, I'm increasing it to this amount, which again, considering the threshold change, threshold percentage which is applicable, I can do this. It's okay. It's not above 20%. But have you spotted something here? There is a mistake. This is for lot 2. Let's go back and look at the grant amount thresholds. I can't do this because the maximum grant amount that I could request is 125,000. Although I am abiding by the 20% change rule, I am not abiding by the threshold rule. So I have to be careful with that as well. Yes, so please do your calculations carefully. So to recap, you have to make sure that you are within the thresholds, minimum and maximum, of the grant amount that you're requesting. You have to be within the percentage thresholds for the grant amount. It should be a minimum of 6%, up to 90%. It could be, I mean, it can be anything in between. It can be 90%, it can be 85%. And also, if you are going to make any changes, it shouldn't exceed 20%. And of course, I mean, if you are abiding by the 60%, 90%, 95% rule, then your co-financing is going to be somewhere between 40% and 5%. Yes, let's carry on. Yes, we have already mentioned about the percentages and those kind of things. In the guidelines, there are certain terms which you can be, which might alienate you or at least intimidate you. So it's good to clear these up as well at this stage. The actual costs are the costs that are directly incurred by you for undertaking certain activities, or you have to pay your staff. There will be certain budget lines assigned to this, and these will be actually these costs will be actually incurred, and you are going to have proofs issued for those. So once you incur these costs, there will be invoices, receipts, bank transfers. So you should be able to prove that these costs are incurred. And you are going to archive these, and these will be a part of your reporting later on when you start your project. And the eligibility of these costs are going to be checked ex post by the Commission. So these actual costs, okay, they have incurred, you have the proofs, but their eligibility have to be checked at the end. And once they are cleared as eligible, then you are then the grant amount is cleared, basically. I mean, I don't want to get into too much detail with the implementation side of things, but just to clarify what we mean. So let me show you the budget template, so maybe it might be more clear for you. This is the template that you are going to fill out and submit with your full application later, hopefully, latest by 3rd of June next year. But luckily, you don't have to bother with this. But please, if you want, you can use this as a checklist, or like when you are brainstorming about your costs, you can use this as a guideline in order not to forget, certain costs, because this might happen. I mean, you are thinking of currently, it's like you have less than a month, you are trying to design your project, and we have used all sorts of these intimidating terms like logical framework, the goals, the targets, the results, the outcomes. I mean, all sorts of things that you have to deal with. And on top of this, you have to come up with a grant amount that you have to request. So in order to have a proper systematic way of calculating the budget amount and the grant amount that you are going to request, this is a good way to question your possible costs one by one. So let's see what we have here. First budget heading is human resource. Are you going to need any staff? You are going to run a project for 2 years, let's say. I'm assuming that you're going to need a project coordinator. Are they going to be part-time? Are they going to be full-time? Also, considering, what sort of a gross salary you are going to give them. This time in the guidelines, there are certain thresholds as well. You have to be within those limits too. So if you are going to assign a project coordinator, that's like a maximum of 2,400. Maybe you are considering to give 2,100 because, doing the calculation, you have a sort of budget amount in your mind, and you have to allocate these to the costs of activities as well. So how much is it viable as a salary to give to a project coordinator or for a project assistant, or if you are going to need a communications officer? And this is just human resources. I mean, with the human resources, the costs are gross, which is to say that if you are assigning someone to the project under these budget lines, you have to pay their social security, the tax has to be paid, their providence fund has to be paid if you are employing them under your organization. So bear in mind these costs, and you are indicating this as a gross salary, not to forget. It's not net, it's a gross salary, including all the social charges. Moving on, for instance, are you going to have a study visit somewhere? Is there in Europe, a model that you want to go review and come back and apply in the Turkish Cypriot community in Cyprus? If you are going to plan a study visit, then you have to think of, okay, I have 2 individuals that I'm going to send to this study visit. Then I'm going to need to pay them per diems. On top of the travel cost, they need to eat and stay somewhere. So I need to indicate the per diem cost. Or alternatively, you might be bringing an expert to deliver a certain seminar, a training, something. Then you also need to give them per diems if they are staying overnight. Yes. So of course, yeah, travel costs. I mean, same scenario. It's the same scenario. You are going to incur travel costs as well. If it's international, per round flight return ticket, or you might be having a project which includes, which is going to need to have a high amount of local transportation. For instance, one of our CSA projects, it's been great. They are visiting all the primary schools to deliver certain workshops and trainings. So you have to think about the cost of that as well and indicate it here. And just to jump into to introduce you to another term, if you are going to indicate local transportation, this is what we call a simplified cost option. Per kilometer, you need to apply 22 cents. So this is how you calculate the local transportation if you are going to have any. Let's say during the project life, you are going to you're going to travel over 1,000 kilometers. 1,000 multiplied by 0.22 euro. This is how we calculate it. And as this is a simplified cost option, that just, I mean, for now, just bear this in mind. You will not have to later on provide any invoices. It's just that you agree, this is an agreed amount, this is an agreed unit cost, 22 cents, and that is what is applied. You only show other costs. Equipment, are you going to need any equipment whilst you are going to implement the project? What sort of equipment, what sort of supplies are you going to need whilst undertaking your activities? And please bear in mind that there is a 50% threshold for the total cost that you're going to indicate for this equipment and supplies. So whatever you are indicating here, it shouldn't exceed the 50% of your total budget. Just as a minor note, this could be the purchase or rent of certain equipment. It doesn't have to be brand new as well. It can be secondhand. Yes. Moving on. Are you going to have any project office costs? Let's say, do you have a headquarters? Do you have an office? Is that office is it possible to use that office for the project as well? I mean, can they allocate a room for the project? Or do you need to rent an office from scratch? What sort of consumables are you going to use throughout the project? I mean, if you have a printer, of course, you are going to need to buy papers and toners and whatnot. And you are going to need to pay, if you have an office, you're going to perhaps need to pay the electricity, maintenance, blah, blah. Please bear those in mind too. Next up is other costs and services. This usually is the most hefty budget heading of all, which means that it's like, as these are civil society projects, usually the projects need to hire a lot of services, different services. So it's the budget heading where most of the budget lines exist, basically. So you have to think, am I going to need an expert? Is this expert, could this expert be a local person, or do I have to bring in someone international? What sort of a daily fee can I pay them? You have to do your market research. You have to ask around. You can ask to the previous grant beneficiaries. I mean, as well as part of your research. What sort of daily fees are applicable for a trainer or for a specific expert? For instance, I mean, with the projects that are being undertaken here, usually, especially if it's a bicommunal project, then you will end up producing documentation in 3 different languages, Turkish, Greek, English. Or if it's, if it's not a bicommunal project, then definitely, I mean, okay, it's Turkish, but documents, as this is an EU project, the documents that you're dealing with is English originating, and your reporting then have to be in English. So at some point, or at the events that you're going to organize, maybe you're going to need interpreters. So you have to think, are you going to need any translation? Are you going to need any interpreters at your events, at the trainings, at the workshops, opening ceremony, closing ceremony, seminars? Think about that cost as well. If you, with financial services, the EU is promising you a certain amount of grants, but this is of course transferred via a bank, and the banks love money, and they are going to charge the fee to you. So at least when the grant is transferred to you, let's say 150, 160-ish at the moment, by the way, is going to be a fee cost for every time a grant installment is made to you. If you don't want to cover these by your own resources, you have to indicate the cost here, or if there will be other financial fees incurring when you are transferring payments to the
οποιαδήποτε
services.
άλλα έξοδα κατά τη μεταφορά υπηρεσιών.
Cost of seminars, conferences that you will be, attending, if there are any such costs. And visibility actions. This is quite important. Every project needs to have visibility activities. And this could be in very different form. Basically, these can be like, I'm proud to show Civic Space's beautiful water container. It's quite solid, and it has the EU visibility on it. I'm loving to use this. Maybe you are going to get this sort of visibility items made with your own logo and the EU flag on it. This could be, a myriad of things: pens, folders, water containers, whatnot. Or maybe you're going to have an opening ceremony and a closing ceremony. So if you think of that, which is a good way actually to make people aware of your project, to disseminate the information about your project, what you are to achieve, what have you achieved, and also to disseminate the information, to give the message that, oh yes, EU is funding this project, and we are doing this. We are undertaking this brilliant project at the moment. Opening ceremony is a beautiful way to, give out the information, and social media as well. So in whatever form that you want to undertake your visibility actions, there's probably a cost to undertake that action. So think of those as well. Whatever you want to do your market research, how much these things cost. Please, don't ignore this cost, because it's going to cost a lot for you, depending on what you want to do. And you have to, you are obliged, in a general sense, to ensure the visibility of your project. So please bear that in mind. And the last of the actual costs, up till now, I have been talking of examples which are actual costs. And the last budget heading, where you can also keep brainstorming of what sort of cost there could be. These could be simple works. It is allowed under this call, but it has a limit of 10%. These can be works. These can be any other sort of cost which is not indicated here. Of course, again, you are not filling this out, but as a brainstorming exercise and approaching this systematically, it could be works or any other type of services which are not categorized here, let's say. Maybe just one another example. Under publications or studies and research, let's say publications, like in the project, let's say you are undertaking a research, and then you want to have the research report publicized as a booklet. You can also fund this. You have to think about this cost and indicate it and calculate it as such. Yes, so that's basically the actual cost. And then what we have here is indirect costs. What we mean by this is once you calculate all your actual costs, like every single budget, every single cost until now, you come to a total amount which will make up your direct cost for the action. Eligibility is something else. I'm not going to get into that right now, but the eligibility is something that has to be checked constantly while you are implementing your project, and then it is going to be checked, as I mentioned, ex post by the commission as well. So eligibility is a different monster, let's say. But until now, you can, I'm hoping that you can have a subtotal of your direct cost, of your actual cost. And then we come to the indirect cost, which can make up to 7% of the total of your direct eligible cost. And with this direct cost, what does it include? It includes anything, as long as it is not listed in the ineligible cost list published in the guidelines, which I'm going to remind you of that as well in a minute. These are, like, for instance, we talked about the office cost and stuff. Let's say you haven't indicated, I mean, you haven't assigned your electricity to a certain budget line. This is where you can include the electricity cost in your budget, because in the actual cost, you are not claiming any cost for the electricity, but in indirect cost, you can indicate that. These are basically like the overhead costs, or those costs that incur whilst you are running your project, whilst you are implementing your project, but it's not directly related to any specific activity. It's a flat rate. I mean, maximum 7% of your direct eligible cost. You can go up to maximum 7% of this, or you can say, okay, whilst I'm going to run my project, maybe I'm going to need insurance. Maybe, there will be things that I'm not thinking of. 4% can be a good, can become a good amount of money to